Okay, Steve, where you at? We we are live on the air. Well, actually, Steve was at a very important meeting, and he should be joining us anytime. But I'm thinking he's going to have some good news for us, possibly. But you know what? In the meantime, I'm going to just touch base on something I was going to bring up. This one here looks like the new realist for Netris just came out, and I kind of wanted to touch base about this. Good afternoon, Jeff. It says, look at that, knows my name, fantastic. And well, here, let me do this. There we go. But anyway, it shows just a quick stat, 90-day trend on the counties that you have selected, and they're right down here. There we go. Yeah, they're right down here. But anyway, shows we got closed sales 552, pending sales 395, and it kind of gives you a quick little show of where we are in relative to the previous. But it looks like months of inventory is going up by 25%. That was around 3 before, so that's good. Average days on the market is kind of sneaking up a little bit. But anyway, this is just a real neat quick view, quick stat view for the different counties. Average sales price. Just a plethora of information. And look at that. You want to know the market temperature, you just look right. Oh, that's right behind me. I think see if I can move this. I can't. But what I can do is voila. Look at that. That market temperature is a pretty neat little feature. But I think Steven should be here. He's what the show is all about here. I'm gonna go ahead and just kick off our intro, and I'm hoping Steve will be there momentarily. And here we go. Well, I was a betting man, and I lost that bet. I was figuring that Mr. Etzel was going to be here. Really what the show is all about. He's got the knowledge. He's got the experience. He's got the credentials. And we're going to just give him a couple more minutes and go from there. But we do have a pretty good show. We've got some of our favorite Trek violations. We've got our sponsors that we like to talk about, who they have been so helpful for many of us and our clients. We've got some good questions for sure. Now, what we don't have are any agent tips this week. That's a little bit of a bummer. We like to hear those tips. We like to get that information and share it out with each other. If there's one thing that we like to do is help each other out. There's enough to go around. But, man, we got some real good questions sent in this week. So... but I've killed 5 minutes so far. That's about 4.5 more minutes than I expected to do. And what do we got here? What do we have here?
Oh boy.
Uh-oh, we got no camera.
No
Got
camera.
no camera.
Very good.
Let me see here. Let me see. Yep, we got to get the camera plugged in.
Uh-oh.
We're
Camera
getting
problem.
close. We're getting close. Yeah, buddy. I've now killed going on 6 minutes. I'm just wanting you guys to know that my contract says tops 30 seconds. But
I understand what's going on with this camera.
yeah, we're out of contract here. But hey, we're ready to take some phone calls too if you guys want to dial it up. But look at that. There he is, man of the hour. Boom. Look at that shirt. Oh my word.
I'm sporting it.
Yeah, that's great.
Second off.
Yeah.
We got through it.
Yeah.
All right, so we ready to kick this bad boy off? Or you've already kicked it off? What have you been rambling about for the last couple of minutes?
You know what? I don't even know. It's been a blur.
Has it been a blur? Yeah,
It's
all
been
good.
a blur. But
I was stuck out on 170 traffic, so there's nothing I can, Sorry about that.
yeah, hey,
All right.
that's okay. That's okay.
Right.
You want to kick off the violations?
Yeah, let's kick them off. Let's do it. Well, actually,
Oh.
There they went right there. All right. So as normal, we start off with our violations, and then we're going to talk about. Actually, we got a really cool agent tip of the week. Yes, we do. And we also have answer the questions, and we got some good ones this week, don't we?
We do.
Got some kind of different ones actually that not really, but not very common that pop up. So that's a really good thing. And so Tracy said, "And class went long." Yes, it did, Tracy. At least she was in the class. I went like 2 minutes or 3 minutes over, so that was my bad. All right, so let's start off with the violations. Here we go, Jeff.
Here we go. Violation numero uno.
Here we go. Buckle up.
Yep. Okay, so this one here, the agent failed to obtain a signed addendum for authorizing hydrostatic testing from a seller before scheduling the test.
Oh, yeah. No way.
It's just
I've actually heard of this. I actually heard that. I actually had somebody the other day run into this exact same situation where they thought for some reason that if the buyer wanted to do a hydrostatic test, we're just going to do it, not tell the seller. All right, now there's a difference between a hydrostatic test and a sewer line inspection, right? So it says it in the contract, 7A, you got to have an addendum. And this actually happened the other day, which is absolutely amazing because, I told the agent, I said, that's a TREC violation. Oh, it is? I said, it's in the contract. Where? All right. So here's the thing, this is something that has happened before. So what happened to them?
So what happened, the seller basically said, okay, we'll agree to that, but we would like to consult with a plumber first. Well, the buyer's agent went ahead, hired a company that did not have a licensed plumber on staff doing this. And that's where it all happened. The neighbor is the one that gave the seller a heads up.
The weird thing about it too is you look at it and go, that's the least of your problems. What would happen if you did a hydrostatic test and it blew up the pipes? That's what that addendum's all about, right? So if something happens, who pays for the repairs and everything else? That's why you have to have permission for that. And to actually do a hydrostatic test, they have to be a licensed plumber. So that's scary right there. So what happened to this agent that had this happen?
So official or technically the test was unauthorized, and
Mm.
agent got a $1,250 fine and was required to do 30 hours of contracts course.
That's the least of their concern. What would have happened if those pipes would have broke? Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, that's a tens of thousands of problem at that point. Oh man. All right, so that's a definite lesson to learn. The hydrostatic test is different than a sewer line inspection. So an inspector can do a sewer line inspection. It doesn't have anything to do with messing with the pipes in any kind of way. But man, that hydrostatic test, that's important. Get that addendum signed. Get
Yeah.
permission. That's scary. All right, we got another one. What else you got?
Number 2. So this one, oh, we're getting a call. That's not a listener. Okay. Say bill collector.
Telemarketer.
Yeah. Okay, I'll
Do you
send
need-
that one
do
to
you need a car
voicemail.
warranty? Do you need a car warranty? Just asking.
Right. Okay, this is the next one here. Okay, so this was an agent acting without a license, conducting brokerage activities without a license. Now, in his situation, his license expired. He said he wasn't aware, and it just took it going over a month and him conducting business. So where he got caught was when he reapplied or reinstated his license. On the application, he answered yes to the "have you ever acted or attempted to act as a real estate broker or sales agent or appraiser in the state at a time when not properly licensed." He was just being honest.
So he wrote yes, and
He
that's
he
practically
wrote yes. He got his license issued to him, and then they came back, penalty of $1,000, and then they revoked his license altogether. Done.
wow. And so I wonder where that complaint came from. Was that a Trek complaint that they did that, or was it a
I
consumer?
think so.
Yeah. Yeah, you think Trek caught it? So applicant conducted brokerage activity without a license. Applicant demonstrated the applicant possessed the request. Oh my gosh. And $1,000 fine and revoked, which means you can't get your license back.
Yeah.
That's horrible. So, we were talking about this today in legal class that, if your license is inactive, you're not supposed to perform any brokerage activities. It's inactive, right? So the bottom line is you got to get it up current. You got to make sure, if you're a salesperson, get a broker to sponsor you back again, I should say. And if you practice without a license, $1,000 fine and license gone. So, I think that's a little harsh in a sense, but how long were they practicing without a license? You see what I mean? Was it a mistake of, hey, they thought this was happening? Was it on deferment and then they just didn't go ahead and know that they had needed a class? So there's got to be a lot more to it than that, so that's kind of scary.
It was about a month and a half that he was still. Now, the broker should know as well, right?
Yeah, the broker should absolutely know if your license is inactive. They, in fact, here's the other thing too. Trek actually sends out a 90-day notice. Hey, your license is becoming inactive, and so or your license is up for renewal. You got to do something about it. So you have been warned at that point in time. And I think I believe they send you a second notice, don't they? Like a 60-day warning or something like that. So they're on top of it. Let's put it that way. And of course, the broker gets the same notice as you do. They should forward it off. So that's pretty scary. So, if you're supposed to renew it, right? Inactive is inactive. That means you don't have a license. So.
Yeah, and I think Melissa's comment here. I think it would be real hard finding another broker, with no license. But no,
and, as a broker, I could talk out of a broker's side of things too. When we're hiring agents, we're looking at complaints. We find all these violations on the Trek website, everybody. These are public knowledge. And so, we go in there and go, hey, this guy had any complaints? She had any complaints, and to actually see if there's any red flags before we hire. So, I mean, if I knew that somebody was practicing without a license, even if they got their license back, I'd be like, I don't know about this person, because that is against honesty and trustworthiness at that point. So, pretty scary.
Yeah.
All right.
Number three.
Number three.
Engaged in dishonest conduct by signing an amendment to the closing documents on behalf of the seller. The seller wasn't even their client. Didn't have any knowledge.
So. Yeah, that's not good. We can't sign any documents on behalf of our client. That's number one problem. The only person that can sign them is them and or the power of attorney, of course. So, and there's not even their client. They're signing the paperwork. Believe it or not, about 15 years ago, I was in a transaction and an agent actually signed on behalf of their buyer. I said, "Where's your buyer at?" "Oh, they don't mind." Well, let me tell you, they do mind. You know what I mean? Because that's not your job. You need to do what your client says. And it says actually in the listing agreement, we can't sign on behalf of their at all. We can't change anything if they don't have the approval or they don't give an approval. That's scary. And, I've seen this actually happen in front of my eyes. And I stopped the transaction. I'm not doing any more business with you. I called their broker and the broker got involved, but it was a scary situation at that point. So basically, the respondent requested the buyer, and then what happened?
So, the respondent, that agent actually represented the buyer. So what happened at the closing? Only 1% commission was paid to the buyer agent's broker. And she realized later that her buyer rep indicated 3% was to be paid. So anyway, she got with title and the lender and basically, they said that's got to be coming from the buyer themselves. And so whatever document or anything that they signed or whatever, she signed for the seller, not thinking that it was going to be a problem.
Wow. It's like I tell people all the time, it's not a problem until you get caught. You know what I mean? So these violations, it could never happen to me. And the next thing you know, you get a violation. Oh, it did happen to me. So respondent realized that only 1% commission had been collected. And so she realized that the buyer rep indicated 3 was to be paid. Lender advised 2% should be paid to the buyer by a cashier's check. What's that all about? And then respondent signed on behalf of the seller, indicating the buyer would be paying the 2% to the buyer's broker. This just gets so much convoluted. It's not even funny. This agent doing all kinds of illegal acts. And then what happened after that?
So basically, agent didn't have the authority to sign on the seller's behalf. Seller had no idea. She was fined $3,500 and lost her license or suspended for 3 years.
Oh my gosh. I would think that would be worse than practicing without a license and having it revoked. You know what I mean? So I would think that right there, again, you look at all this stuff and you go, that's the trek. But what happens if they civil sued? What would happen if there was a TR violation? I mean, this is just the beginning of the iceberg right here. And I would probably, if I was in that situation, I'd probably be hiring a lawyer. What do you think? I go, whoa, what is it? This person's all over the board, So that's pretty scary. So, wow, it does happen. That's probably the most convoluted one that we've seen so far. I mean, that just took twists and turns and everything else.
But to be able to think that you could sign on somebody else's behalf, regardless. I mean, I don't care if it's a note to the school. You don't sign like mom for mom, right?
Right. So that to me, that is just the most disturbing, demented thing I think I've seen in a long time, And for somebody to think that's okay, that's even worse. All right, we got the last violation. What do we got here?
So this one here, we've seen this before, but this one takes it a little bit further. The agent failed to disclosed that they were that she was one of the owners of the property. So more than 10% interest, and she had it.
Wow. So
But on
basically,
top of that, oh, go ahead.
so on top of that, she didn't identify the fact that she was actually a owner of a property under paragraph 8 of the contract, right? So if you have more than 10%, is that where that one's going?
Yes. And on top of that, on the seller disclosure, they did not acknowledge that they made modifications and alterations without permits.
Oh my gosh. So that's failure. So that's misrepresentation. So, oh, wow. The sad part about it is, why wouldn't you tell them you did it without the permits? Because that could be jeopardizing in a future transaction too, So, and then all of a sudden that could turn out to be a real issue. So, ouch. And then I see some other problem that they had. The respondent requested the tenant make the deposit check payable to an unlicensed entity. So,
actually, I think that is some leftover that should have been deleted.
oops, all right, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
So the penalty was basically $1,500 and 6 months suspension. So again, that's crazy. And so I would think that would be a higher penalty, but
well, we've seen the fail to disclose the relationship. We've seen that, but I think that 6 month suspension is coming about not disclosing the unpermitted modifications and alterations on the seller disclosure.
Yeah, failure to disclose. Yeah, that's right. And so, wow, I'm surprised they didn't have to go back to a class too, agency or contract or something.
Yeah, that's true.
Wow.
That's true.
All right.
I think that's a wrap on the violations.
Yeah, I think we got a little sponsor, don't we?
We do, and thank you very much for pointing that out. I'm just going to update my screen here, and we're going to do it just like this. This one here, Handyman Plus.
There he is.
From big to small, Handyman Plus does it all. And
nothing more we can say about that. We apparently, we use them all the time, right? You use them all the time. I've referred them out to some clients, and they're very satisfied. So, I just appreciate them being a sponsor, because they actually, the good thing about sponsors are when they do good, it makes us look good. So I appreciate that too. And so and like you said, he does everything. So residential, commercial, maintenance, everything. So from top to bottom. And I actually am going to refer him to an investor friend of mine that possibly has some work for him too. So, so I just appreciate the fact that he can do everything. So you don't have to keep calling a bunch of other people out there to give quotes or whatever the situation is, and get the job done in a timely fashion.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. What do we got next?
Well, we actually have, guess what? Agent tip of the week.
Oh.
Agent tip of the week. All right. So tip of the week. All right. Now, this is actually a really good tip to go off of too, by the way. This actually happened to an agent. I'm kind of paraphrasing all this stuff. Somebody called and wanted to list some property, vacant land, and the person was in a real hurry. Talking real hurry to list this property. And the agent actually did a CMA on the property, and they said, well, how much you want to list the property for? They're like, well, I'm looking at $450 each parcel. They're only like a half an acre parcel or so. And it was in a part of town in Austin area where those lots would go for pretty high, half an acre, and they were going to build on it. And if you see the area, you'll understand what I'm talking about. And the comps came back at $250 each. And so the agent called them back and said, hey man, we could do it for $250 each. Oh, absolutely. Let's get it on the market. All right. So the agent was kind of thinking in their mind, they're saying, well, wait a second here. This person is really quick to go from 450 to 250, right? That's kind of a red flag. And number two, all the information that was given to the agent, well, the agent was smart enough to know there was a red flag. Let's call the title company and get a preliminary title search. Oh, so what happened was the agent called the actual title company. They started doing their preliminary title search. And basically, once they started getting involved in it, they found a red flag because the home phone number of the actual owner was different than the cell phone number that was given. And so they tried to keep calling and reaching out to them. They couldn't get a hold of them, right? And so then the title company said, hey, before we can open up title, the owner is going to have to send us proof of identification, which is their, driver's license or something. And so the agent called back the person that wanted to list the property. They said, well, I'll be more than happy to give you the ID on the day of closing. Does anybody see a problem with this? And so basically on the day of closing, we're going to give an ID after it funds pretty much, right? And so the person that called that said that they were the owner of the property, come to find out, the agent did a little research on Facebook and found the actual owner of the property and reached out to that owner and said, hey, my name is such and such. And are you really interested in selling this property? The guy had no idea what she was talking about. None whatsoever. And so the tip is, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. There's a lot of fraud going on right now, so we got to really be mindful of this. And the agent did exactly what I would have done. Call the title company, verify, make sure the property is owned by that person, research it a little bit. And I mean, just 2 or 3 phone calls found out real quick off the red flags that were given that was a fraud situation. And now the title company has actually filed fraud charges against this person.
Oh, wow.
And put on fraud alert. So the tip of the week is this: research the property before you list it and see. And even how about even on the buyer's side, buyers, sometimes not everybody does the research they should be doing, correct? And so doing a preliminary title search can save both sides a whole lot of trouble, a whole lot of grief, and make sure that person owns the property and make sure it is who, obviously wants to list the property. And a title company did an awesome job in a fraud alert situation. And that saved a lot of, could have been a real fraudulent situation going on out there. And, ironically, here's the scary part: that agent already had a developer lined up to pay cash for it, $500,000. So what would that con artist made off with? $500,000 out the door. So isn't that a scary situation?
Yeah.
Wow. I thought that was a pretty good tip. What do you think? That's just me with all this stuff going on and the all these fraudulent situations going on and all these people are stealing titles all the time. That's called title theft. People are doing wire fraud. Hey, it's not a bad thing to be too cautious.
Yeah. So. Well, there's a lot of good reasons to get a title preliminary, get it pulled early. I mean, it just speeds things up and identifies issues.
Yeah, it identifies the owner, liens, judgments and everything on there. So to me, that's probably one of the best things that's one of the best tips I've heard in a long time. Do a preliminary title search, you know what I mean? So, and even on the buyer's side, I would do a preliminary title search because a lot of times sellers don't, know if they have any liens on their property. They don't disclose them, right? Or they don't think they're important. Or, another thing that I found out about title search, which was kind of interesting, is, the forbearance, over the last couple of years, remember that little forbearance thing we had going on? Well, everybody seemed to think that forbearance meant forgive. That didn't work that way. But if you do, like, let's say a payoff letter, they don't always show the forbearance on there. And under the title search, it will actually identify that there's a forbearance on the property, and you can tell the buyer that. You see what I mean? So, there's a lot of good things that can come out of this.
That's great.
So,
good tip.
It's a win-win situation, and it can keep us out of trouble too. So it's a good thing.
Right.
All right. That's an awesome tip. So who sent that tip in? Guess who it was? His name is Robert, and he's actually from Waxahachie. So thank you, Robert. I appreciate that.
That's
So,
great.
yeah,
And so
absolutely.
Robert will get our gift box that we send out to everybody who sends in a tip of the week.
I wonder what's in the gift box, Robert. All right. So all you got to do is email us and or give us a call and get your information, and we'll get that sent out to you. So thank you, Robert.
Yeah, good job, Robert. And we've got another sponsor, Certa Pro Painters. From big to small, they do it all. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm mixing up vendors.
They'll paint anything.
Yeah. Yeah, these folks do a real good job. They'll defer payment up to 6 months. And again, they've got a crew that'll come in and knock it out.
Yeah.
So,
and I understand you've used them a few times too.
I sure have. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. What else we got going on? I think we got asked some questions, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, we do. Let me hit my button. Oh. This is a nice one. I love this.
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, 5.
Happy.
Okay. Well, this one here, we got some good questions.
Yeah.
Tony from Paris, is there anything that protects me and my broker should someone get hurt when showing a property?
Oh, what?
Ooh, that's a good
All
one.
right. Well, that's actually a pretty good question there, Tony. Number one, in the listing agreement, it means liability. If you're reading the listing agreement, it's limitation of liability. And so basically what happens is not necessarily you, but you're an independent contractor, Tony. Sorry about that. So if you get hurt on the job, there's no workers' comp for you. But let's take it a little bit further under the listing agreement, unless it is the agent's negligence of why somebody gets hurt. Obviously, you're held harmless. That means to indemnify at that point in time. So basically, you are relieved if somebody else gets hurt on the property, and they would have to, possibly go after the seller or the seller's insurance or whatever the situation is. On the buyer side, limit of liability, it actually says the client will hold the broker identified, right, which means held harmless, unless it is the negligence or the liability of the broker of why something happened. So it's actually in your buyer rep, and it's also in your listing agreement that actually protects your clients. And as an agent, we don't have workers' comp, and it also identifies a little bit in the listing agreement if something happens. But other than that, it's your clients that you're worried about not getting hurt or on the property. So, is there anything that can protect you? The answer is be careful. Now, we actually had a situation where an agent, this was in Granbury about 12 years ago, where one of our agents went out to go show a property on a dock on a ocean on a lakefront property. They slipped and fell on the dock and actually broke their knee. Well, the problem with that was they try to make a claim against the homeowner policy, and the homeowner policy says it wasn't our negligence. That's a dock. You know what I'm saying? It's slippery out there. And so the bottom line was there was no real reimbursement or anything like that for that agent at that point in time. They would have had to prove the fact that it was a negligent situation that the seller should have warned them about before something happened. So hopefully that answers the question.
Now, what you got another story. What if that buyer brings a guest who hasn't signed any of those buyer reps or anything?
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, under the actual paragraph in the buyer rep, it says the client will hold the broker harmless, or if it was a negligent caused by the client. See what I mean? So if somebody, like, let's say, for instance, I was in a class teaching about 8 years ago, and there was a situation where a farm and ranch broker went to go show a property. They had their client with them, but their client brought their brother. All right, this is a true story. This is crazy. And we were talking about this, and he jumps up out of his chair and he goes, "I am so glad you're talking about this." And I said, "Why is that?" And he goes, "We got sued for $1 million over this paragraph right here." Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen to you. I didn't say that, right? I didn't say it will ever happen again, but it really made me self-aware of things happen out there. And so what happened was the client brought their brother to go show property with them, and they're on four-wheelers. They're driving around, and his brother hit a fence. All right, hit a barbed wire fence, broke his knee, and I think he sprained his ankle and messed up his neck and dislocated his shoulder. So he got pretty messed up. Well, what happened was the brother sued the owner of the property and the broker for $1 million. Well, long story short, the way this broker told it was, the client was protected, but not the one that was the third party because they weren't on the buyer rep. And another way he told it was this: he was responsible for only 25% negligent at that point and only had to pay $250,000. And the owner was actually held responsible 75%. And so the owner actually got the brunt of that one of $750,000. And so he said the best thing that they did was they contacted their attorney, which is a good idea whenever stuff like that happened, right? And the attorney wrote what was called a third party liability. And so what that means is if they're not on the contract, they're not a client, correct? Because it certainly states client. And so now what he did was, and I see a lot of farm and ranch brokers doing this and commercial brokers and stuff, they'll actually have a third party liability form signed for. If you're going to bring somebody with you, they're going to sign that form that holds everybody not liable for any incidences that happen on the property. That's a scary story. That's quite the eye opener. So it does happen, and people look at me and go, "Can that happen?" It did. I actually had that gentleman, $1 million lawsuit over what? Just bringing somebody along to show the property with? That's scary right there.
So the E&O insurance wouldn't cover something like that, would it?
Well, it's errors and omissions. I believe this is what the broker said. The broker the E&O paid half that. So we still had to come out of pocket. Still, I still don't want to have to pay $125,000. You see what I mean? So, but the E&O did cover some, but not all. Yeah.
Wow. Good question.
And the property owner's insurance paid, I think, the majority of the case. But the bottom line was they still had to pay some money out of pocket for damages. And what happens to your insurance policies? They go up. So, see what I mean? So it's not a win-win situation. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Okay. This one comes from Jim from Jacksboro. What is considered a natural resource? I had this question come up when completing an unimproved land contract.
Ooh. All right. So that's in paragraph 4, right? Paragraph 4, leases. So you have natural resource leases. And so there it is right there. It's in paragraph 4, natural resource leases. So what is actually considered a natural resource lease? Well, it kind of lists some stuff out. Natural resource means any existing oil, gas, mineral, water, wind, or other natural resource leases affecting the property to which the seller is a party to. Now, that's actually something that should be kind of brought to everybody's attention, because a lot of times you can buy a property and the natural resources are leased out somewhere prior to the sale of the property to somebody else, right? So if they're not a party to the lease, they don't have to give a copy of the lease. They just have to disclose that there's a lease on the property. But what is considered natural resources? Anything from nature. So a natural resource lease can be what? Well, by definition, that can be crops. That could be hay. You know what I mean? So that's natural, right? Those are natural resources. So basically, it doesn't just have to be oil, gas. It doesn't have to be, wind. Wind is, those turbines and so on. It doesn't have to be water. Any natural resource that is created on that property can be considered a natural resource. Now, on the farm and ranch contract, they also added surface leases. So that was under 4D. The surface leases could be, something that is leased out like a pasture lease because they're only using the surface of the ground, right? But natural resources or anything naturally grown on the property or naturally produced from that property. So that's a great question right there. I get a lot of that. And that's a great question. So Jim from Jacksboro, I'm sure he deals with that an awful lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Good,
especially
good
farm and
question.
ranch or unimproved. Oh, absolutely. That's a really good question. All right. What else we got?
Okay.
Stephanie.
Yeah. Stephanie from Round Rock. I have a new listing and it's a mobile home, but when I pull up the tax records, it has two tax ID numbers. And she's asking why.
Wow. All right. Mobile homes. All right. So that has two tax records. So one could be a personal tax record, possibly. And also, a lot of times, mobile homes also have DOT numbers, right? Department of Transportation numbers on there. So, you know, that can also be another number. But what do you mean it has two tax ID numbers? Like for property taxes, or is it for personal property, or is it, you know, what is it?
Yeah,
What kind of tax?
there's a tax ID, which for the mobile home, and then a tax ID for the land. So it's got
Oh,
two tax ID numbers.
so that means
And
it is not considered real property.
exactly.
Oh, I got you. All right. So basically, what you have is a property ID tax number that makes property, obviously, for the tax identification, and then the actual it's a mobile home.
Yes.
So the mobile home probably has what is called a maybe a DMV record or something, right? Because it is mobile, and so that's telling me right now that that is not real property because you have two IDs. So if it
Yeah.
was real property, kind of give you an idea of what makes a mobile home real property in the state of Texas, right? So this is actually good to know. Uh, Basically, it says it has to be tethered to the ground, which means attached to the ground, right? It has to be owned by the land has to be owned by the same by the owner that puts the mobile home on there. So the land has to be owned by the person that owns the mobile home too, right? So it's both. The owner owns both. So basically, it's tethered to the ground. The owner owns the property and the mobile, of course. And what else we got going on? Well, it also has to be attached to a public utility, such as sewer, water, electricity. And then you also have to have what is called a certificate of attachment. It's normally what you would get from that county. And then that would combine that, right? That would make it real property. You would only have one tax number when it comes to the property taxes, not two. So that's a real indication that it's probably personal property, not real property. And
Yeah.
guess what? We don't sell personal property, right? We don't sell personal property. What do we sell? Real property. So that's a good question. Have you ever came across this before?
Yeah, we sure have. And I wanted to share this website here, the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs, and you can
Mm-hmm.
put in the address and submit and pull up. Well, I thought I had it all pulled up for you, but anyway, it's a good it's a good. I'm getting echo here. But anyway, this will pull it up and tell you if the property or if the mobile home has been perfected or not, if it's real property or not, and it's a nice place here.
That's a really good website right there. You know I think that works better than the tax records.
Yeah, it's
And
a
what
good
what
one.
website is that?
It's the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs. It's mhweb.tdhca.state.tex.us, and I'll put that out there. Um,
That's awesome. That's a really
I'll
good
put that
website to
out
know about.
on the link right here. So
That's a quick find right there.
yeah, yeah. All right. Well, good.
Awesome. Good.
Good
Yeah, that's
question.
awesome. That's an excellent question and good resource too. Thanks, Chef. Me
Lenny
likey.
from Carrollton.
Uh-oh.
My client has a hard time with electronic forms and gets frustrated with me when I ask them to complete something. Can I complete the seller disclosure notice for them if they provide the answers?
No. All right. So basically, it's a seller's disclosure, not an agent disclosure, correct? So they can only fill it out to the best of their ability. So if they're having a problem with electronic form, sounds to me like you can mail it to them, right? Certify mail it to them, drive it over to them, meet them at the Starbucks. I don't care what you do. Get that seller's disclosure notice over to them, or you can actually send it to them as a PDF, and you can print it off at the office, right? You don't have to use like dot loop that a lot of people don't know how to use. They don't have to use doc. You don't have to use DocuSign or whatever you're doing. Send it over as a PDF file. Boom, have them print it off and have them hand fill it out. It's that easy, right? And then mail it back to you or go pick it up. But the bottom line is this: we don't touch the form, period. So basically, the seller is going to have to fill it out themselves. And we can do many things to accommodate somebody that is not good with electronic files, right? And so, get it to them, have them fill it out. In fact, in all reality, we can get the property listed. And even when it's listed, even if it's been on the market for 2 or 3 days, you can still get the form over to us. Does that make sense? So it's not like, oh my gosh, I can't list the property unless you have this form done. My suggestion is you always should have it done so you can put it under supplemental documents as fast as possible. But the bottom line is we can get it up there. Hey, if it's up there for 2 or 3 days, then you upload the form. That's the worst case scenario, but at least you're getting that form completed. Because if you don't get the form completed, then you're going to have to wait to get it, if somebody wants to write an offer on the property, then it goes under 7B, right, which is the second box right there. Within blank days, you're going to get it to them. And then they got 7 days to look it over. Then if you don't give it to them, they can back out for any reason. So you want them to check the first box that they have received it. But, it's like I tell people, take your time, do it properly. I'm not going to do it for you. And all it has is questions, yes, no, or unknown. And if you have a hard time with electronics, we could get it to you. And if I have to drive out there and get it to you, I will get it to you. It's not that big of a deal. They could even go to the Trek website and download it. You know what I mean? It's that simple, everybody. And so, just download it, fill it out, and then mail it to me or meet me somewhere. I'll get it from you. Then I can upload it into supplemental documents. So a lot of times when you're dealing with people that are computer challenged, or sometimes when you're dealing with, seniors or something, they might not have access to a computer or they don't feel comfortable with computers. Sometimes we're going to have to drive that document out to them anyway, right? So that's part of our job. So it's not an inconvenience. It's what we do. So, yeah. No, you don't fill it out for them. Get them to fill it out and do everything possible.
Well, and you said it before, that may not be the right listing for you, if they're going to be that difficult. So
yeah. If you offer alternatives to them and they're still not wanting to do it, that might not be a good time to get involved in that listing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You might be, what are you hiding? That's the key, right? What are you hiding? So if they're already dodging and weaving before you even get to a seller's disclosure notice, I can tell you right now, that transaction is not going to go very good or go south pretty quick. So yeah, that's a good point too. Good question, Lenny. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Good question.
All right.
Nick from New Braunfels. Did I say that right? Braunfels.
Yeah. New Braunfels.
Brett Favre. I submitted an offer that did not include earnest money. Is this legal?
Yep. You don't have to have earnest money to have a contract. That's called what? Good faith. And so earnest money is not required to make a valid contract, but earnest money does relate to paragraph 15, like default. If somebody defaults, you take earnest money as liquidated damages. And it also shows more good faith, of course, if somebody wants to buy the property, but it is not required. So if you submitted an offer with no earnest money, it's up to the seller to accept it, correct? But it's not required to make a valid contract. Now, option money, let's not confuse the two. If you do have or do you want an option, you do have to have an option money because that's called quid pro quo. You have to give to receive, right? And so if you want an option, you got to pay for the option, but earnest money is not required to make a contract. And I've seen people put zero in there before. You know what I mean? If the seller doesn't want to accept it, they can always counter it back. It's that simple, right? They can say, hey, it says no earnest money. We want at least $1,000. Counter it back if they don't like it, but it is not required to make a valid contract. So,
Great.
good
Good
question.
question.
Yep,
Good
absolutely.
question. And I think that wraps it up on the questions. We do have
Yeah.
a couple more vendors. We've got
Okay.
Silvano Robosio Insurance, and they do it all: home, health, motorcycle, commercial. And then we've got our last one, our Bidsy, our auction. And I did talk to them about that. Steve, you had a great idea about doing estate auctions, and they are going to look into it. So well done.
That. Yeah, absolutely. Maybe we're all here to help one another, right? So that's actually not a bad idea for even if not necessarily they have to set something up, but if you do have an estate and you got a whole bunch of stuff, you can take it over to them and can sign it too. So I mean that might be another way to do it. So I think the hardest part about estate sales is get rid of some of the access. Let's put it that way. Of couches or whatever. They're kind of hard to move, so might as well make a little money out of it. So why not? So cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad they're going to take that idea and run with it. Awesome. All right.
Well,
Heading on down.
You got any more? You got anything else you want to share?
You know what? I wish I had some news, but the best news I have today is this. If the Fed say and they stick to what they're going to say and they're going to lower interest rates 6 times in over 2024, I'm excited. I'm really excited about that. So I was actually reading something about when they think that the first adjustment's going to make to come down. It's going to be around February. So that was the last update. That can change at any time, right? But they're hoping to get the interest rates down around 5.5. 5.5, 5.25, something like that, by summer. So if they do as they say they're going to do, I could see 2024 being a really good year.
And I think I'm going to save that last one for our highlight reel. Thank you, Stephen.
The do. And I do what I do, so do well. All right. So if the actual Fed stick to what they're going to say, I don't know about y'all. Or is everybody ready for a big turn? That'd be awesome. So that's the big news that I have going on now. And I just read this like the other day. So I guess it is news, right? And February should be the first decrease. So we'll see how all that pans out. And they're hoping that over the holiday season with all the spending, that will kind of even out the economy a little bit so they can start kind of making that downward spiral, if you will. So good news. I thought that was good news. And we talked about this on the last show. If it goes down 1%, what does that bring out? 5 million more buyers, right? If it goes down 2, and that would actually be 1.5% if it goes down to 5 and a little over 1.5% if it comes down to 5.5, right? If we get down to 5.5, you're bringing out what? 7.5 million buyers. So that's a wonderful thing. That's all I got to say. So I'm ready for it. That's all I got to say. I'm ready for it. So
yeah,
and that affects everything, right? Commercial, residential. So everything's going to start moving forward. So that's about all I got for the news. How about you?
Yeah, that's it. That's a wrap. I'm beat having to carry the show for 5.5 minutes.
Oh, you're killing me. All right, so I guess so. We got Jeff beat already. Oh, come on. All right, so just a reminder. Just a reminder, if you want to call in during the show, the actual phone number is going across the screen, kind of scrolls across every couple seconds here. So 940-230-2899. You get live. That's pretty cool, right? Get it live on the show. And if you have any questions or comments, or anybody that you want to spotlight, if you see they win a little prize, so that ain't bad, huh? And so that is at realestateramble@gmail.com. Send it in, and if they get spotlighted on the show, we're more than happy to send them a little gift, and we appreciate everybody's support. So if you have any vendors that are interested in hopping on, have them call us. have them email us, and we'll be more than happy to spotlight them as well. And our vendors are very happy with getting a lot of response from being on the show. So that makes me happy because, obviously we're all here to help one another. So I appreciate everybody. Hope you have a great rest of the week. Jeff, you got some closing?
Yeah, I wanted to add to that because it makes us look good too when we can refer a contractor that follows through and fulfills and meets expectations or exceeds. It makes us look better. So if you have a good contractor, man, let's share them and let's all look good. So
yeah, we're all in this together, everybody. So we're all a team. So we appreciate everything, and great point. All right, everybody. You have a great rest of the week. We'll see you next week. Same time, same channel. Episode 13. I can't believe it. 13. What? All right, everybody. You have a great afternoon, night, morning, whatever it is. And thanks, Jeff, for holding down the show for the last 5 minutes. And
yeah.
We thank you.
Oh, yeah.
You have a great afternoon. See ya.